Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the Door County Board of Supervisors to order on Tuesday, December 18th at approximately 10:15 a.m. Would you please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Present, no absences. Presentation of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence. We have two items. First of all, passed out on your desk today was a letter from the Southern Door Fire Department at the Mill Pond. And secondly, Kelly.
Go use the microphone. This one's not working.
These aren't working either, I don't think.
Oh, they're not?
I think she's gonna need them. Yes, we gotta get her up on the screen.
Good morning.
No, she's not.
Mine's very short. Back in November, the Risk Management Committee recommended passing a premium holiday for our employees in December, which was brought to the full county board and approved. And I sent out a message to our employees that I wanted to share all the thank yous from them and how excited they were to receive that information. And up on the screen are some of the comments that I received after I sent the email out and the thank you. So they were very appreciative of that and excited to receive that information. So thank you on their behalf.
Thank you, Kelly. Public comment. Does anybody in the audience care to make a public comment? You'll have to speak up. The mics are not working back there.
I'm here to speak in favor of the resolution for support of legalization of medical cannabis. Glaucoma, fibromyalgia, cancer, and the counteract side effects of cancer are well treated by medical marijuana, cannabis. Especially chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is a terrible thing, and it's able to be used to stimulate the appetite. I don't know too much about it, but there's a couple other there's science behind this this movement. Chemotherapy, chronic pain, just a couple of physical symptoms that it's used to treat. Also, depression and PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder is very common in returning soldiers. And the medical cannabis is once again proven to help relieve those symptoms. 32 states have medical cannabis laws. A couple of them are our neighbors. Minnesota has laws for medical and is decriminalized the cannabis. Michigan is fully legalized. Illinois is medical and decriminalized also, and Canada now is fully legalized. The medical benefits outweigh the cost of the society, in my opinion. So, Leader Anderson.
Thank you. Morning,
Hello,
Chair.
everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to say goodbye to everybody and thank you for everything you've done for myself and the Sheriff's Department. The days are winding down quick, and I didn't want to just send out an email. I want to do it face to face and let you know how much I appreciate everything you've done for me and the department. I know we have common goals, one being taking care of the citizens of Door County, and the other is taking care of our employees. And I think the past 4 years, we've done a very good job of both. It's thanks to collaboration between us that gets done. And talking to other sheriffs, doesn't always work that way with county boards and sheriffs. There's sometimes a lot of tension, and I've never felt that. Everybody here has worked well with me, and I think everything's been respectful, and we've both learned a lot. Working with some of the new people on law enforcement and now the Public Safety Committee, they always ask very good questions. And they're always curious and want to know how things are done, and everything's always done respectfully, and I appreciate that. And I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a very non-contentious 2019. So take care, and we'll see you down the road.
Anybody else? Don?
Well, I hope you can hear me. My name is Don Fricks. I live in Fish Creek. I want to say a word about messaging, and I was disappointed with the message expressed at the last Supervisors meeting in declining to hear from citizens on a referendum, and not even decided to not even have a referendum on a question that Seth just spoke to. I hope we have regular legislative committee meetings. I think there's an urgency to get one in immediately after our new governor is sworn in. And I would, and I'm not being facetious here, but I'd respectfully request and suggest as a first order of business coming up in the new year that the board consider authoring a resolution expressing a vote of no confidence in our first assembly representative for the votes taken during the lame duck session that have been widely criticized as an attack on our state constitution. Now, I don't expect that it's going to happen, but I thought we're talking about messaging. This is a message that you guys can choose to do something about it. We say, oh, we can't do anything about it. It's a state level. You got the power to message and say things like this. So I thank you for listening to me, and that's my comment for today. So,
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? We'll move on. Supervisor's response. Approval of the minutes of October 23rd regular meeting and November 13th budget annual meeting.
So moved. Second.
Questions, deletions, corrections, grammatical remarks, other errors, or acts of omission? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any business and updates? Resolutions. Resolution 2018-80, recognition of Gerald W. Warwick.
Also moved in favor.
I'll second.
Dan?
And you want me to read it? Whereas Gerald M. Warwick, President and Chief Executive Officer of Door County Medical Center, has been President and CEO of Door County Medical Center, a 25-bed critical access hospital organization that includes multi-specialty medical clinics and a 30-bed skilled nursing facility since 1987. And as whereas during these years, Warwick has revamped the birthing center, incorporated 3 satellite rehab centers, a home health agency, constructed and acquired facility additions to accommodate ancillaries, emergency outpatient services, surgical suites, a women's and children's center, and 4 medical clinics. And whereas Warwick has also overseen the development of a unique rural physical physician hospital organization and a combined foundation auxiliary fundraising organization. And whereas most recently he has begun the construction of a new skilled nursing home on Door County Medical Center campus, brought robotic surgery to our rural community in 2018. And whereas Jerry Warwick's community activities include serving on the board of Door County Economic Development Corporation, Sunshine House, Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, Open Door Community Health Center, Town of Sebastopol, St. Peter's and Paul Catholic Church Council. He has also been a member of the Sturgeon Bay Rotary and the Sebastopol School Board Subcommittee. Now therefore be resolved that the Door County Board of Supervisors, assembling in regular session this 18th day of December 2018, hereby recognize Gerald M. Warwick for his services to Door County Medical Center and the residents and visitors to Door County.
Thank you, Dan. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jerry? Would you like to come up and say anything?
Sure.
I'd like to note that he doesn't have his Bears shirt on.
Thank God I didn't work today. I was thinking about it. Well, this is quite an honor. Thank you. My staff said, we had our usual meetings this morning and our Tuesday morning meeting. They said, come on, we're going on a tour. So I said, where are we going? None of your business. You know, they can talk to you that way in your last 2 weeks. So thank you very much for this honor. It is indeed an honor to be recognized by your local communities. It's been a great honor to be able to be here for the past 31 years and put together the medical system that we have in place today for all the people of Door County. It goes without saying, and I'm not the only person who did this. I had a great staff over many years, great boards of directors. We worked really closely with the county board, especially the emergency medical group with your fine paramedic program. You have I know from a county point of view, you always think, oh, how much it costs, but it really is. It's a gold standard of the way counties should provide emergency transportation to their community. They have saved, I'm certain, countless numbers and numbers and numbers of lives, which we can't even begin to count. And you're responsible for that. Your support for them and their families, those people whose lives they saved. Thank you. It goes without saying also that another person who I need to really thank, who's made all this possible, is my wife, Candace. Many of you know Candace. She's the person who, when I go home at night and come up with some ideas, now and then about pretty good, or you may want to think more about that, or have you ever thought that? And so she's been behind me for the 31 years I've been here, also helping me in this position. So I know you got a lot of business to do today, so again, this is really a surprise for me. Thank you so much. It's again been a real honor and pleasure to serve this community. It's a great community. So thank you very much. God bless all of you, and have a really blessed Merry Christmas and a great, fruitful New Year. Thank you.
Resolution 2018-81, Committee Appointments.
Sure, just in your packet, it's that time of the year where we have our certain terms that are expiring, and we went through the process of redoing the appointments. In most cases, they are, again, reappointments of individuals that have served in the past and are still interested in serving. In this case, if you look on page 11, we do have 2 new individuals with a brief bio for each one of those individuals. But again, we're asking for your approval for those appointments.
I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
David. Any discussion, questions? If not, by voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Resolution 2018-82, non-commercial hangar site lease agreements, Ken Ropak and Jeff Ellis. John?
I would move for approval of resolution 2018-82.
Second.
This is the standard lease agreement approved by the committee. It's in front of us because of the 10-year term. I guess it's just for going.
Questions? Because this involves money, we'll go to the voter vote.
First, yes or no? Yeah, but you have to hit first yes or no. It'll turn yellow when you hit yes or no and then confirm.
And that's passed 21 yes, 0 no. Thank you. Resolution 2018-83, Land Use Services Department fee. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2018-83.
Second.
What it is, pretty self-explanatory. It's just an updating of the fees the Land Use Services Department charges for certain items.
Any questions? Comments?
John, we're on 2084, right?
No, 83.
83.
Okay, I'll wait, then I don't have enough.
If not, we'll go to the voter vote.
Oh,
And that is passed 21 yes, 0 no. Thank you. Resolution 2018-84, acquisition of real property for addition to Door Bluff Headlands County Park. Mr. Ostead.
also move to pass.
I will second passing Resolution 2018-84.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
What this is a piece of land by the Door Bluff Headlands Park that's available. It's, how many acres again?
Roughly 72 acres.
72 acres. This has been suggested that we add on to the park system with this, and it will be done through donations and grants and not the tax levy system. Is the plan. You want to add any more?
Couple things to point out. In the map that was included with the resolution, the northernmost parcel actually has a finger that runs all the way to the water. It's about a 30-foot wide strip that didn't get represented on the parcel map we printed out. So that's important because for purposes of grants, it opens up grants for shoreline property that would not otherwise be available to fund the purchase. These two parcels we looked at in 2008, adopted a resolution very similar to this, with the same condition that it be funded entirely by gifts, grants, or donations. We fell short in 2008, and the property has come back up for sale, and we have reached an agreement which is reflected in the contract that is in the packet. And if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer those. One notable thing is the 10-year delay has benefited the county to some degree. In 2008, the offer to purchase was $1,125,000 based on an appraisal. We had the same appraisal company do an appraisal in September, and the value came in at $450,000. So.
Any questions? John? John, did you have a question on this one?
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Well, it says that there's no physical or no tax gonna happen to the county. I'm wondering if there's any way through some process that something can be done, slipped into the budget, that all of a sudden the taxpayer's checkbook is wide open because of something that took place in the budget process. That we could end up paying for this in some way, the county could? There's absolutely no way the county could end up paying for this.
No, I mean, the only, and just for transparency standpoint, there might be just an issue related to the timing of the grant funding and so forth. So there might be a situation where we use I guess, our dollars to initially pay for the property as far as the closing, but we would not do that unless we know for sure we have the grant dollars coming in. So it's just a matter of the timing, but there is no intention of using any tax levy or any undesignated fund dollars for this project. And there's nothing in our budget right now, and at this point, we're hoping to do that. The closing, I think it has to be done by what date, Grant?
In March of 2019. For all practical purposes, it has to be, the funding has to be available and the closing has to occur by the end of March 2019 by virtue of the contract. And March 1st is a very important date because all the contingencies have to be met by then.
Thank you.
Bob?
I just want to thank everybody who's been working on this. I think this is a really important acquisition to a really important piece of land. Ecologically, I know the Nature Conservancy has looked at this, and I know it was aiding the process back in 2008. And so I hope we can move forward with this. I do have a question. I don't really know the ins and outs and how these things work, but it seems like March is a pretty short timeline, and I just wonder if, because it is two separate parcels, obviously the more northern parcel is contiguous on two sides with the current park, the current park that we have, and then that southern, I believe it's what, 15-acre parcel juts south a bit down to Door Bluff Road. Now that would be nice because it then also allows access to Door Bluff Road for the park. But if for some reason we were to come up short, or, I mean, is there any possibility that, I mean, I guess I'd hate to lose the larger parcel if it meant that we just didn't buy the more southern piece to make the deal happen. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know if there's any, or if it's just that this is all wrapped together and it has to be this way. I mean, I guess I'm hopeful that Ben and the park department can get the granting and all that, but.
Well, the estate actually has at least one other parcel of property for sale, and they may have two, I don't remember. And they offered all of them to us. The two that are before us today are a result of our election. The estate's attorneys have been very communicative. Susan Maher, who is the trustee, has been open to meeting the county's needs in the past. So if it came to pass that we only had funding for one parcel, we would approach the estate's attorney and see if something could be worked out. But at this point, what we hope is to be able to obviously fund the purchase of both.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not against the acquisition of this property, but for the record, when this happens, it'll come off the tax roll, and what is the impact of lost taxes on the property? You know, what taxes are they paying on it currently? And that, if this happens, that'll be gone.
I don't have that available. I can look it up while we're talking or asking questions.
Yeah, I don't have that at my fingertips.
Please do. Linda?
I guess my one point was that it's held by a trust, but then you're authorizing this individual, oh, okay, she is a trustee. Okay, so disregard that. Yes, I did note that the closing date is March 14th of 2019, which is not a whole lot of time. But then I also noted that in paragraph 18, there's a survival of an additional 6 months. Is that correct? That if we fail to find funding by March 19th, there's an additional 6 months to.
No, the paragraph 18 applies to the covenants and agreements that are binding upon the county and the trust. And once the property is sold and the closing takes place, that those covenants and agreements only survive for a period of 6 months beyond closing.
Okay.
The short date is at the request of the trust attorneys. We had initially proposed the entire year of 2019, and they indicated that they wanted to get this done within the first quarter. So we didn't impose that deadline on ourselves, and We have our work cut out for us, but we're hopeful that it can get done. It's a good opportunity, I think, if the county board's interested in acquiring the property to pursue funding for it.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the voter board.
If you want to do that before you go.
Sorry, we'll get the tax information first. Kathy?
As long as we're waiting. The one thing I was gonna say, be sure to double check to see what value that tax bill is on, because as Grant said, it went from $1 million something down to 450,000. So it would depend upon what the assessment was at the time of the tax bill.
The larger, oh, okay, if you have it too, but the larger piece, according to the latest tax system, the larger piece is a tax rate of $903. And then the other piece is $756.
Yeah, I was just coming up to say that these parcels are enrolled in the managed forest program for the state of Wisconsin. So its next scheduled harvest schedule is 2027. So it's not.
Are they an open or closed program?
I believe it's an open currently.
Dave?
So in reference to that, I know that sometimes there's issues when ownership changes hands. What happens to our aspect of taking ownership of the property?
So because we're a unit of government, we can exit the MFL contract with no penalty. If this purchase was, to me as a private citizen, I would have to maintain that managed forest contract or pay all of the back taxes on the property to get out of the contract.
So is our intent to get out of the contract, or
Yeah, we have no
value in staying in it?
Yeah, we don't have any obligation, and actually the MFL program doesn't apply to.
So we'll by default, we'll get out of it.
Well, that's what I was kind of hoping for, that if it is under some kind of a woodland tax program, then they were paying very minimal tax on it, and it's not a big impact. But having this discussion that just happened, if we're exempt from the harvest down the road, that doesn't, I hope it doesn't put them on the hook to pay all the back taxes. Because, you know, I'm sure they have an attorney that should be, I'm sure is aware of all this, so.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the voter board. That is passed with a vote of 21 yes, 0 no. Resolution 2018-85, transfer of powers and duties to the Door County Department of Human Services per section 46.233B Wisconsin statutes. I will turn that over to Ken and Grant, but could I have a motion first?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, I know this has gone through several committees, but just for the sake, so we're all on the same page, let me just give you a little bit of background. So, actually, we were looking at this for actually almost over a year as far as this in discussions. But when Rhonda did retire, I guess it prompted us to move a little faster of looking at, potentially looking at a merge or a reorganization within the public health area. So I worked with both Joe and Sue, who is our interim director, in terms of trying to complete analysis on, I guess, what would be the best approach for our county. We looked at the do-nothing option, in other words, status quo. We looked at merging with Human Services, and we also looked at actually merging services with Kewaunee County. I thought both Joe and Sue did an excellent job in their analysis and the research on it. And it did come back that probably the best approach for us where we are today is to merge with Human Services. So we went through that process, talked with both the Board of Health and also the Human Services Committee, got their recommendations to proceed. and then also took it to admin to also get the recommendation to proceed with the merge. So what we're looking for is, again, this resolution actually, because of what's required with the state, is matching the statutes in terms of the requirements for declaring that merge. The one thing that did come up through all the committee processes is what are we doing with our existing committees? And right now, we're gonna have both committees exist as they are, and they'll be operational. We'll do analysis later next year, but usually what we do is we look at the committee sizes for April 2020. And that's when we make our committee changes or rule changes at that time. So if we were gonna, again, whether we merge or change the size of the committee, we'd probably make that as part of the process for 2020. So the resolution before you is, again, what we're stating, we had this reviewed by the state. I know Grant worked with the state representative and Joe just to make sure that it has the proper citations and everything in it. But again, in essence, what we're gonna do is merge the departments. And in essence, moving forward, we'll still have both committees functioning as they do today. That's the short version, and I can ask or answer any questions that you have.
Grant, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think the resolution's fairly formulaic. It's based on the statutes, and it does what needs to be done if we intend to merge the departments.
Questions? If not, we'll go to the voter board. That has passed 21 yes, 0 no. Thank you. Resolution 2018-86, Door County Performance-Based Compensation System. Ken, Kelly? Yes, can I have a motion first?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2018-86.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kelly's my backup, so I'll just maybe walk us through this. One thing I'd like to clarify, and it was a little bit of confusion, and next time we ever consider doing this, we will separate it, but there's actually two concepts that we're looking at today. So one is our traditional pay for performance, and that's a program we've had in place now for about 4 years. And the pay for performance is when we do evaluations on an employee annually. We do their review, and then based on how they perform, they then qualify for a percentage increase depending on where they are in the pay plan. So if we're going to focus in on the pay for performance, you go to page 37. At the top of that page, you'll see in essence, a chart. So depending on where that employee falls right now in their pay plan, if they're within our step system, the step 1 up to the control point, if they perform that meets requirements or above, they qualify for their step increase, which happens to be about 2.5%. If they're at the control point, which is that 100%, or from the mid to the max, they can then qualify depending on their performance. It varies. Obviously, if they meet requirements, you'll see the 1.75, and then it goes up by quarter percentages after that, all the way up to 2.5%. Likewise, what also we have is those individuals in our pay plan that are above the 114.99%. What we do is we allow for them, based off their performance, to at least get a bonus. So in other words, they don't get, their base salary does not change, but they qualify for a bonus, and it's based off a percentage of their annual salary, but up to a max. So that's what you'll see in the far right-hand column. What you see this chart is identical to last year's program. And again, the only thing that'd be different is in the far right lower box where it says meets requirements. We did add a 1.75% bonus up to $1,000 max for employees that are above what we consider the maximum. That's the only change. Otherwise, the percentages that you see in the chart are the same as what we adopted last year. So what we consider is the good news is that obviously each year we look at what we think we can afford within our program and what we think that's fair to the employees, and this is what we're recommending of one, what we think that's good for the employees, but also what we can afford within our pay for performance program. So that's the first part of the resolution itself. The second part, and this is entirely separate, and that's why I apologize for having it being in there, but if you go down then right below the chart, we're talking about our compensation structure overall. So if you recall, we have a compensation structure which is based off grades and steps. And each position is in some way or another, in essence, slotted into that, except for our represented units, they are not. But for our GMEs, they fall within what we consider the compensation structure. What we have done when I guess we did a modified adoption of our compensation structure first back in like 2016. Since then, we have not modified this compensation structure, or what's commonly known as aging, or some people consider it like a cost of living adjustment. So in other words, if you had an individual whose starting pay was $10 an hour in 2016, our comp plan today shows $10 an hour as their starting pay. What we need to do when we look at our compensation structure is, do we need to, in essence, age it or do a cost of living increase to make sure we remain competitive within the market? Again, we have not done that in the past 3 years, but now we are recommending that we implement that for 2019. So if you look at, again, right below that chart, you will see the 2019 Door County compensation structure. It'd be the effective the first payroll of 2019, and we're recommending the following: that the structure be aged 3%, and that all the rates within the structure move with the aging. So again, if you consider those steps or wherever they fall, we have to age the plan. So when we age the plan, so again, I can walk us through, if you're within, I guess, the 87.5 all the way up to the 114.99, you will move with that aging. Again, the reason why you do that is because if you have, for example, a new employee that's at the first step, if we age the plan, they actually fall out of our pay plan. So when we age it, you have to move the employees with it, otherwise it creates a tremendous mess. The one thing that's also we would do is that those that are above the 115%, they would not experience an increase. Again, they've been above the pay plan, they've been afforded that, I guess, higher salary above the, I guess, the maximum, so we would not adjust their salaries. The only thing that would be adjusted if I was an employee that was at 116%, if you do the math, I age it 3%, they technically drop down to approximately 113, we would actually increase their salary back up to the 114.99%, but they wouldn't get the other part of that balance. So anyways, the main idea is to try to keep it fair for everyone within the pay plan and the structure itself. Again, the reason why we're recommending this, to me, there's actually twofold parts that we want to consider as a county. One, are we remaining competitive in the market? And again, we work with Carlson Detman, who does a lot of that analysis for us. And last year we were probably close, but we did not pull the trigger just because we're trying, again, we felt comfortable with where we were. But this year, just based off the consumer price index and also what we've not done in the plan for the past 3 years, we felt that it was time to actually recommend the aging of the plan. So that's why the recommendation is before you. The second part, obviously, can we afford it? If you recall, within the budget model, when I put together and I showed the budget model, I showed that, where we're falling. And then for next year, again, we were very close to being able to, status quo-wise, in terms of our budget, be able to balance our budget moving forward. This increase was actually built into that budget model that you were presented in terms of the budget itself and how it was adopted. So in essence, there's no additional dollars we'll have to take from the budget itself. This as a point of clarification, the one thing that we probably will have to do is, depending on how we settle with their 2 represented units, that's something that we probably have to come back and take it out of our payroll contingency. But again, that's something that would be, we bring that back in the future. The one thing that we discussed at admin, and it's something that, I'm very cognizant of along with Kelly, is, how do we, I guess, strike that balance? Obviously, as an organization, we have had the philosophy that we want to, again, maintain a strong working environment. We want to make sure that we can retain our employees and we also can attract our employees. So we're looking at that aspect along with also trying to balance the aspect of, with the levy limits upon us, we're a growing organization with this our employees and this our costs. So at some point, as you saw in the budget model, we're going to start hitting that wall. With that, the feeling is that we still have to move forward as an organization to make sure that we can keep our employees here and keep our quality employees, especially here, to provide the services that we need. So it's kind of that balancing act. And that's one of those things we'll have to face. I know they had a long discussion in terms of, at admin, in terms of trying to adjust the levy limits in the future. And we'll obviously have to continue to work on that. But I guess our recommendation as far as administration is that we think it's important that we remain competitive and that we treat the employees that we have so we don't lose them. And it's, I think it was one of our core philosophies when we adopted the pay structure, so that's why you have this recommendation before you. So again, there's two parts to it. One is the pay for performance, which is that top part of the chart. And then the second one, entirely separate, is our aging of the comp plan, and that's the recommendation for the 3%. And I guess I can hopefully explain that good enough that I can answer any questions you have.
Linda?
Maybe I didn't catch this, but when you were talking about the levels of performance, I noticed that those descriptions have changed a little bit. Like last year, it said substantially above, consistently above, or frequently above. And now this year, it says exceptional, highly effective, and above. Is that just, does it affect the parameters?
It doesn't affect the parameters
those
per much per
categories?
se, but what we're trying to do is we have a software package that we use that I guess electronically we can do all the evaluations. And I guess what we're trying to do is get the wording to match more with our software so it's more consistent for the employees and also the supervisors when they're doing them to make that connection. So we had two different, I guess, sets of terminology, and it's just one of those things that's more of a cleanup on our end just to make sure that they are consistent and people understand the terminology.
Megan?
I did have a few employees under the age of 35 contact me asking me to support this because it is something that is very meaningful to them that will keep them from looking elsewhere. And they'd like to stay in Door County and they'd like to stay with this organization. So.
Anybody else? Now we will go to the voter board. That has passed, 21 yes, 0 no. Thank you. Resolution 2018-87, requesting state law change allowing counties the use of the design-build construction method and update the statutory bidding requirements.
Also moved.
I'll second.
We're going to let Grant and Dan explain it.
Wayne,
I'm sorry, Wayne.
Wayne, not Dan.
Dan.
I can give you the quick legal, and then perhaps Wayne can fill in the blanks. This has been a topic that has been under consideration for a number of years. In Wisconsin, design build has been deemed to be, to date, contrary to competitive bidding requirements, and counties have not been able to use design build for projects that require competitive bidding. And the purpose of this resolution is to ask the legislature to consider making the necessary changes at the state law level to allow design build to be an option available to counties. I think it's important to note that this would not require the county to use design build, but to use perhaps a worn out analogy, it would simply be another arrow in the county's quiver when it's looking at public works projects. I should stress we're sort of at the infancy here. The Wisconsin Counties Association is trying to gauge whether or not there's enough support among Wisconsin counties to take this up with the legislature, and I think we're still in single digits on the number of counties that have considered or looking at adopting similar legislation. And so the difficult part, I think, for some people to understand is other units of government, for instance, school boards, have been allowed to use design build for as long as I can remember. So,
Questions? Linda?
I tried to do my homework on this one and just got more and more confused. Talked to Mr. Osted, I talked to Mr. Spricka. I can see advantages and disadvantages, and as was clarified, this is only an option we could use. We don't have to use it if we decide to support this. But I could see where it would be good for, you'd have a single point of contact. You've got one entity that's gonna do everything for you. And probably good as far as maybe getting a cost or an estimate quicker than if you had a whole bunch of people bidding. But the disadvantages, I'm not sure it would be the most competitive route to follow. You know, if we're looking at the bid as the bottom line, are we precluding some bidders that do not have the capability to do both design and engineering and construction? So I think maybe there might be a lack of competency there, competence or whatever. And then would we also lose some opportunity to look at the qualifications of all of the bidders being, you know, okay, design and construction again? So I guess those are my concerns: checks and balances, transparency.
I neglected to mention the second element of this resolution is to raise the competitive bidding threshold by tenfold from $25,000 to $250,000. I think we know in our experience here that $25,000 doesn't get you much, so that's the other ask in the resolution.
I guess just to answer your part of your question, I mean, those are all valid concerns, and I think that's why it's important, just to kind of go back to what Grant had stated, that it's not something that it's not anything to be required, but as a county, we'd still have the opportunity to look at an individual project and decide which way we wanted to go. Again, it all depends on the size and the scope of the project, but again, when it was at $25,000 threshold, if you have to do both I guess it's a basic design, you know, quote, and then go through the bidding and stuff like that, at that threshold, I guess you also see inefficiencies having to go through a number of those certain steps. Just because, again, if you look at, I can just tell you right now, when we're looking at the government center, even remodeling like one office suite is well over $70,000 just because of all the stuff related to HVAC. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. I think it's something that, depending on the project, and I think it's up to the county board to exercise what they think is the most competitive way to save those dollars. But I think by just having the option of being able to at least look at that based off the size of the project, I think there's some ways that you could say that you both could save as well, so.
But it would still be up to the legislators to, I mean, this is just a recommendation, right? To the counties association and ultimately the legislators. So it's a resolution recommending. And then can I ask, why were those 2 points combined into one resolution? Why wouldn't we have design build as a resolution and then request for exceeding limits as a separate resolution?
I think just because they're both related to public works, and the latter one, the $25,250, is another one that's been discussed for many, many years because the trigger for competitive bidding, and competitive bidding is a good thing. I should point out, we opt not infrequently to do competitive bidding when we don't have to, because in certain circumstances it causes people to sharpen their pencils and give you the best possible bid. And again, this would just be an option of raising the mandatory competitive bidding to $250,000. We could still do it if we wanted to. And it was just combined, Linda, because the subjects are very similar. It seemed like a good mesh if we're going to lobby on design build, that you also lobby on raising the threshold to trigger competitive bidding.
Convenience.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Personally, I would have preferred to see them both as separate items myself. Design build is a firm's option, design choice. Would they choose to do both for person? You know, we've dealt with those corporations ourselves. I understand it, but ultimately my past experience has been you save a little bit on the design costs if you're going to be a design, they're going to design it and build it, but I don't see that there's a massive dollar value difference to outline this specifically. It already exists now. Now I do like the 25 to 250,000. That's a given. That's been a poor number to start with, even at the town level and village level.
would just also like for future reference to support the idea of separating these things out. Even in the last resolution, we had, you know, two things that were put together, we all agreed on it, but I think this body can handle the details, so I would prefer to see resolutions like this. When they can be two different resolutions, I'd like to see them that way. Thank you.
Just for note, and Wayne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is again, this is one of those resolutions that's kind of a template that's being used through they have a facilities management association that they're building. And this is one of those, I guess, template ones that they're trying to get across. Again, it's one of those things that were provided. I agree, we can definitely do that, but that's the intent of where it came from. And again, the association itself is trying to work with, again, WCA to see if there's enough momentum to see if we can put this together. So, but no, well taken, but this will give you context of why it's in this format.
Anybody else? Dave?
Well, I guess while it could be maybe some advantage to separating it, both of those are covered under the same Wisconsin statute, and that's the way the legislature will be working with it. So having it combined, I don't think it's really a problem.
Anything else? We'll go to the voter board on this one. That's passed with a vote of 19 yes, 2 no. Resolution 2018-88, support for legalization of medical cannabis.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to make a motion, we adopt resolution 2018-88 in support for legalization of medical cannabis.
Second.
I'll start with the discussion. After last month's meeting, I decided to direct sponsor this resolution. I am aware personally of people in Wisconsin and in other states that use marijuana for medical purposes. There are 33 other states that have some type of medical marijuana laws and usage in some shape or form. And I personally just feel that if there's something that Wisconsin can do to alleviate pain and suffering of our residents, that we should allow it to be used. So the resolution is asking the state to look at that and look at the legalization of medical cannabis. Anybody else?
I just have a question. Can you explain to me how this is different from what we went through last month? Is this putting it to a vote in the community, or is this a resolution as our county board right now, and that would go forward to the legislator?
This is a resolution that will go directly to the legislature.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to be clear.
Right. In the real question, there was some confusion last month, I think. Last month, the two questions were whether we should have a referendum on medical and on recreational. It would be a non-binding referendum. As a result of any referendum, it would still have to come back to this body. We would still have to do a resolution, okay, and support it, and then send it on to the state. So if this body believes that we need to do something resolution-wise to the state anyway about medical cannabis, I'm just offering to do it direct and move and get on with it. Anybody else? If not, a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I think that was carried. Thank you. Ordinances. Amendment of Chapter 11 Door County Code Highway Setbacks. Mr. Knights.
Yeah, I would move for adoption of ordinance 2018-18.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll refer to Mr. Grant Thomas to kind of explain this because it goes to the state.
Very simply, John Kaloji, Mariah Good, and I realized at the beginning of this year that the provisions in the Door County Code that related to the highway setbacks did not necessarily, being kind, mesh real well with what's in the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. And what we decided to do was take a look at Chapter 11, and when we took a look at Chapter 11, we realized that it has remained untouched since 1972. So it was far past time to take a look at it. And what the amendment does is bring the ordinance into line with the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. We've specified in the amendment that where the zoning rules, where zoning is in effect in Door County, the zoning ordinance applies. If the zoning ordinance doesn't apply, then we have included the current language that reflects the current setbacks into Chapter 11. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but the shortest answer I can give as to why we did this is I was 9 years old when the ordinance was last looked at. Well, that's the time to take a look at it and bring it up to date. If that's not enough.
Questions, comments?
Susan?
This isn't really a question, but I very much appreciate it when there's something in the packet that explains the rationale. We don't have that in this one, and so I went to the committee meeting minutes and I was able to get the rationale from there, but the public isn't necessarily gonna know to do that. So, and lots of times we do have the rationale in the form of a memo, so I just encourage us to do that with every one of these resolutions. So when people look, they can say, where did it come from? Because clearly, there's a good rationale for doing this, so.
David?
So I honestly didn't read the entire resolution, so help me understand what happens to existing signs that will become non-compliant. So are there existing items that fall underneath these setbacks that become non-compliant?
The way we crafted the resolution, if you look at, the short answer is, the way we crafted the resolution that we hope to not create any non-compliant signs. We were just bringing Chapter 11 up to date with what we've been doing with the Door County zoning ordinance for years and years and years. And in fact, I went to great length. If you compare the paragraph 11.01C of the existing Chapter 11.01 is mirrored in the new because we just simply didn't want to create non-conforming signs. That would be paragraph E, directional and entrance signs, which are basically exceptions. So it's not to say there aren't non-conforming signs, there are, but those that have been non-conforming, whether or not we enact the ordinances before us today.
Yeah, I'm not referring to the ones that would have been installed not in compliance with the ordinance of the time.
Bob?
Maybe this is a little bit to Susan's point. I'm not 100% sure what we're changing. Is it possible to just summarize what the changes end up being?
I guess the simplest way I can put that is that if you look at on page 45, 11.01, number 3, sets the setback at essentially what it is in the Door County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. And in those towns where the zoning ordinance has been in effect, and I don't know if Mariah's still here, but I think it dates back to 1968. We've been applying the setback that's been in the zoning ordinance. The other things that have changed briefly from the original one, for reasons that aren't entirely clear to me, in the current version of 11.01, we also seek to apply it to state and town roads, which I'm fairly firmly convinced we didn't have the authority to do in 1972, and I know we don't have the authority to do today. So, but really, Bob, what we're trying to do is just align chapter 11 with the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance got ahead of chapter 11, and, you know, quite frankly, we've sort of been ignoring chapter 11 anyway, and applying the more stricter rules in the zoning ordinance. And Mariah, John, and I just felt it was necessary, and it is a good idea to get the two aligned so there isn't confusion. But the setback area that is described in 11.01A3 is what the setback is and has been for a number of years.
Anybody else? Dave?
Yes, with the change of the old Highway 57 to County DK through District 1 and some District 2, with the county taking over that road, are the vision corners the way they used to be recorded, or are those changing with this?
The vision corners haven't changed.
But the setback for a state highway was different than for a county road? Just wondering how those corners, the way they're marked currently, is that really the vision corner that would exist for a county road?
Yeah, my understanding is where the county road intersects what used to be, what is now currently DK, that the county vision corners were applied. I can't say, put my hand in the Bible and say that's the way it was, but.
Well, I know different owners use the property differently. The corner markers have been removed. Or, so it's just kind of a question some people have as to what applies to them.
It should have been the county rules, and under this, the amendment, it will be the county rules that apply, obviously, because.
Anyone else? If not, it's an ordinance, we'll go to the order board. That is passed on a vote of 21 yes, 0 no. Item 12, special reports, update on the Forestville Mill Pond Management. Aaron?
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm here today just to give you an update on a project that Soil and Water has been working on recently with the Facilities and Parks Department. And we're looking at management options for the dam in Forestville. The county owns the dam, and it creates an impoundment of the Anape River. And the adjacent area is the Forestville Dam County Park. So that's where we're talking about. In 1996, Soil and Water did an assessment of conditions in the mill pond and identified poor water quality, shallow depth, lack of aquatic vegetation, all contributing to poor fish populations. We reviewed in 96 a number of management options, from dredging to drying the dam, drying down, and all the way up to removing the dam. But no decision was reached and no action was taken at that time. And so if you fast forward 20 years to 2016, the Parks Committee held a meeting to review conditions in the mill pond because of public concerns. And as a result, we determined that we needed to update our assessment of the conditions in the mill pond, and as such, Soil and Water became involved. Completed a study in 2017 of the same type of conditions, water quality, depth, bathymetry in the pond, fish populations, aquatic vegetation, and even collected some sediment cores. So we finalized the report in June of 2018, and then engaged a stakeholder committee to look at those management options again. To vet those options, to identify which ones were feasible, which ones were going to achieve the results that we were looking for to improve the conditions in the mill pond. So in August and September, we had representatives from the Facilities and Parks Committee, the Land Conservation Committee, the Village and Town of Forestville, riparian landowner, and DNR. And That group met 3 times. They heard from the technical experts, DNR and other agencies about what the pros and cons were of the different management options. And we put that information together along with the updated dam report that we have from October of just this past year, and came to a recommendation from Soil and Water to draw the mill pond down. And the reason why we're proposing this is we really think that we will see some changes that will improve conditions in the mill pond as a result of the drawdown. So a drawdown is a gradual lowering of the water levels in the mill pond, that once the water levels are lowered, then the pond will be returned to a river for a defined amount of time. We're proposing to start in the fall of 2019 and run through 2 full years, 2 winters and 2 summers, before refilling the mill pond. And the benefits of doing that are by having the water just in the stream channel, it allows for the accumulated sediments in that area to compact and degrade. And when we refill the mill pond, we expect to see that we'll have increased water depth. We expect that the aquatic invasive species that are in the mill pond will be much less, and we expect the native vegetation to return. And we do expect that there will be some impact on the fish populations, on the carp that are stirring up the sediments in the pond right now. And we'll be working with DNR to identify potential fish stocking once the pond is refilled, and so that we can return those fish populations to a better condition than what we have right now. And so those are the reasons we're proposing this, to improve conditions in the mill pond. We think that it's a feasible alternative. We've looked at the different options, and this is our best recommendation. And so I just wanted to give you an update because we'll be having a public meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in the town of Forestville. Let me get this right. The town of Forestville Hall that is in Maplewood. So that's our next meeting, is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. It'll be a joint meeting of the Facilities and Parks and the Land Conservation Committee. It'll be a presentation by Soil and Water staff who worked on this project, and then an opportunity to answer questions. And then we'll be presenting that recommendation at that time, and then in January we'll have a final joint meeting of the 2 committees to finalize that recommendation. I just wanted to give you an update, offer you an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. I see one here.
What sort of impact will this have on the flow of the NMP itself from there to Algoma? I mean, will it end up widening it out a bit, or, I mean?
So by conducting the drawdown in a way that we're not just going to open the floodgates and let it go.
Yeah.
By conducting it in a controlled way, we don't expect that there will be impact, because once the sluice valve is open fully, it will just allow for passage of the flow.
Sure. It's my favorite place to kayak, so I was curious.
Sure. Anyone else?
Nothing?
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. New business, election of civil service commissioner.
So we have to go through the process for Kelly for their Civil Service Commission, and you'll see that individual who has been representing or serving on the committee, and that individual, Sharon Haynes, is willing to do that again, but it does require that it goes through what's considered an election process, so we need a motion and adoption to allow her to do that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Could we, excuse me, could we be a little more clear on these motions? Making a motion
Thank you for the election of Civil Service Commissioner.
of Sharon Haynes. Thank you. It's just a point of order. We should be doing that, you know. Okay.
Done.
Any questions? Not on the voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any oral committee reports? Are there any committee minutes to be reviewed? Vouchers, claims, and bills. Announcements. Our next regular county board meeting will be January 22nd at 10 a.m.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
actually, if you want to do 9 next month, you can.
Every train is in the next.
Got a lot of power here, buddy.
We've noticed that, Joel.
I know we're looking out for the group.
How about we just keep it at 10 for a couple?
Okay.
Just keep it consistent.
Early morning snowstorms, you know.
Partying on the 25th?
Just on your thing, there's a thing for the holiday get together, so again, if you look at the timeline, I guess I'm supposed to be in charge this year, so I shit, but not in time, forget it. But if you could bring it in, I appreciate it.
You probably also have received information on the legislative exchange in January.
No.
Ken, do you have your brochure?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman.
This is one that gives
It came like this.
Okay, this is one that everybody is approved to go to. What are the dates on it, Ken?
Let me just look at it. It's, February 5th. Let's see, wait a minute. Wait a second. 4th and 5th. It is Tuesday, February 5th, starting at 8:30 a.m., well, they're 9 o'clock for opening remarks, through Wednesday at 11:15, well, about 11:45 they adjourn. Now this is, for those of you that are new, I know we debate this all the time, who needs to go and all this, but I would really suggest everybody goes to this. You get the chance to see all your elected state officials. The new governor has been invited. Many times they do show up, don't they? There's only a couple times they haven't. So, and you get to hear from them directly. They argue, no, they don't argue. They debate points that do concern us, both sides. It's very educational, I think, and everybody should make an effort to go. Usually what we do, since it starts in the morning,
We go down the night before.
we'd go down the night before, so we'd end up staying there 2 nights and leave Wednesday afternoon to return.
And this is one that's approved in our budget for everyone to attend.
But why would I have gotten this if nobody
We were
else has
just,
gotten this?
I received it too.
When did you get it?
I think
It's just coming out right now.
A week or so ago?
I only look at my mail every week, so it might be on my kitchen table.
We went last year, I imagine.
It is a
We'll
good
get
one.
it.
You went, did you? Yeah, it's a good one.
Do we have to sign up?
Yes, so what I'm suggesting is we make some type of arrangement with Jill and we get signed up sooner rather than later.
The last day to sign up is, was it January 18th? No, wait.
And everything is at the conference, right?
Yes, that's the concourse.
Yeah, registration deadline is Friday, January 18th.
Okay, so Jill is asking that we let her know by January 11th.
I've got mine set.
Okay, so again,
You registered
I'll
already?
get it out.
No, but I've got it. I'll give it to you.
we'll get the information out to you if you don't have it. But again, we're asking that let Jill know by January 11th. We're going to be attending.
I'm trying to tell the middle road something here.
Okay, last but not least, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. You and yours, I hope you have a great holiday season and look forward to working with everybody next year as we forge ahead with the next fantastic year. The meeting for DM code is 12:18.
Move to
With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
They beat you.
If there's no further business be transacted, I had to get it in anyway, even though you guys didn't.
you did.
Is there a second?
I did second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas.